A lot of startups don't realize how much their early cloud decision influence speed, cost, and even team culture. Today, we are not here to blame anyone, just to talk openly about what usually happens in the first 2 years with these startups. With me, we have Mr. Vinay Mishra. Vinay, you have already come to our show earlier as well, and he's the one who has closely worked with those startups at the very early stages.
Thanks, Kuldeep. Most of what I share today comes from the patterns which I have been seen repeatedly. Those you can't term as mistakes, but of course, maybe just learning moments.
Sure. So let's start our conversation. First of all, why do you think so? The cloud feels overwhelming for the founders in the first few years, although these cloud providers claim, hey, we have simplified every journey for the developer, for the SRE, or for the product manager.
So, to start something new, you need to first unlearn the old one. The problem lies that people are not unlearning anything. So, say if I am hired for a new startup, I will start comparing that, okay, what I am been building at delivery, let's replicate the same. Okay, so that's the mindset from which I will be starting. Maybe a founder will be starting, and there lies the problem. That from day one, if you will start building like big companies, then of course you will be nowhere because the first motive of the startup is to make a minimum viable product. Okay, that is missing. People, if you will start jumping from one thing to another and just not focus on the actual uh, agenda, then of course founders will be nowhere. They will just get lost and maybe wasting some time and money. So better let's focus on the present rather than on future. So that is the most important thing. And it is not that people are not taking a right decision. So early cloud decisions are usually with good intentions only. They are, you can say, very ambitious in nature. They want speed, everything. But the problem lies that they need to focus on particular things. Say, just for an example, they start with AWS. Okay. Now in AWS, they will, anyone who has worked or not worked, they will just see, oh, there are 200 plus services. Which one to use? Okay. Then within that 200 plus, then they will decide, okay, I will start with my compute. Now in compute also, there are multiple things. There are Lambda, there is ECS, EKS, App Runner. Okay. So people will definitely get confused until they know that what basically they want to start with. Okay. What is the basic thing which will really be fruitful at this part of the startup? Second thing, of course, there are a lot of jargons which comes into place. Okay. Every startup founder is not a, you can say, a cloud expert or not have worked on tech also. Now, if he or she will go for a startup, then they will see, okay, I've heard that to create our own infra, we need to have a VPC, we have to have a security groups and availability zones, all those things. People are not that, you can say, experienced about all these things, or they don't know. So they think that it is a very complex thing, especially people who have worked on the on-premises environment. So they think that, okay, what is there? Like, we really need someone, a cloud expert kind of thing, to just get into those details. But it is not. You need to simplify those things. Okay, but that is not what founders are doing. It. Third, I think it's the, you can say, anxiety around the cost. Okay, people are so much into the LinkedIn and all those things. They just keep reading about that. Okay, if you will go on a cloud, there will be a lot of bill shoot up. Okay, there are a lot of memes also going up. Like, okay, I was a millionaire and then now I have a lot of debt just because I kept my EC2 instance on for a week or something. Okay, so people need to just see that what they really need those things before they are like into a very matured startup, or you can say at a stage when they can afford those things. So the surprise billing is something which really is, you can say, creating a lot of fear amongst the startups that what will happen. And it's not even for a founder, even the cloud experts, they also forget these things. Then it is not that only a single person or even a company with like a very good DevOps team, and those will also have this particular cost anxiety that something or the other will definitely shoot up, intentionally or unintentionally. Okay, so those are basic different things which developers are, or the founders, you can say, they are feeling like. Okay, then of course, when you go into a cloud, of course, the major thing is founders should not forget they have to go for a particular product. They need to launch a product. Now, if we will start with the cloud only, and founders themselves are say writing the code, and something happens, now they need to just jump around the thing. They need to debug the network rules. They are renewing the certificates. Okay, think about the deployment pipelines. The problem is that you are overloading yourself. Okay, and that is the major issue with the founders currently. Okay, and if you will see, and that also I think comes from LinkedIn only, or maybe people are now doing chat GPT. Now founders will just search, okay, what are the best practices to make a product live in a say a cloud, AWS cloud or something. Now they will give a good list of things. Okay, so resource should be in multi-AC. Okay, there should be, you can say, you can't rely on the T type of instance. Okay, so many things will be put up for you that founders will say, okay, I need to move into something very complicated. Okay, but it's very much critical for founder to know that you need to first start with the MVP. Okay, later think of these scales things. Otherwise, all these things will be very taxing and you will ultimately be burning money, nothing else.
You are absolutely correct, right? And as you have highlighted, in the early stages of the startup, as a founder, you need to more worry about your product and how you can launch it and really get the user feedback. Because for the initial launch, of course, in the cloud is very helpful. You can just give your credit card detail, you can start spinning, and maybe you can even launch it in less than a day, which with the earlier on-prem, etc., it used to be like even months of the work. That is one thing which you should do. And yes, of course, the scaling will come and you can do this part. This is something maybe like after 2 years or 3 years, because right now, if you just start thinking about all those services, what is that? The most complex and most, the best architect of the world I need to implement, that even might not be useful because you never know whether your product is going to even sustain it or not.
Yes, definitely.
So the first question comes, right, as a founder is choosing between cloud services, right? Which cloud services should we start with? Because there are so many cloud providers also.
Okay, so I think first of all, you need to know like what you are making. Okay, maybe a fintech or a healthcare, they might need little more scrutiny than the other thing, other areas. So they might think of few other things respective to the compliances and all other things. But generally, most of the things what I see are the SaaS startups currently. Okay, a simple mobile app, a web app, those kind of things. And of course, for that, if you need to just start, you don't need anything other than few very basic services. I can just that will be on your fingertips. Okay. Say for compute, it will be a simple Lambda. Okay. If you are really well versed with the Dockers and other things, maybe you can start with the ECS, AWS ECS. You don't need anything else. I still think that monolithic architecture is well versed for the startup. To just have a monolithic architecture, easy to auto scaling, simple, a single instance, min max desired, just put it on. That will be really good for your compute environment. Okay, from database side, I think you can start with Postgres. If you want to, you really have a some NoSQL use case or something, then of course you can go for a DynamoDB or something. Otherwise, let's start with a relational database, and I think Postgres is very much aligned. There's a lot of now an article going up in LinkedIn also that OpenAI is using just a single Postgres to handle such a large traffic. Okay, so of course there are a lot of case studies around it, and I think simple Postgres will be RDS Postgres or a Aurora Postgres is okay to go with. Then of course S3. S3 will be required in any case for storing anything, maybe logs or event-based architecture. You want to automate something, of course S3 will be there. So that will always be there. Then from an auth perspective, maybe if you want to use Cognito, it's okay. Otherwise, go for an open source like Keycloak. People are using it for very large scale, and Keycloak is a very matured architecture. Plus, of course, Route 53, simple, and I think CloudFront, that is one of the, you can say, very good service to start with for all your, you can say, high availability, security, as well as other things. So I think for CDN perspective, CloudFront. So only these four, five services, nothing else. You are not going to keep anything about for 24/7 to start with, right? So Lambda, I think, is the best thing to go for.
No, you are absolutely bang on because these services are first thing is they are quite very mature in the cloud industry, and second thing, although like from those description perspective, these are sounds more like the AWS native, but there are like equivalent which are available within the other service provider. For example, if you are just coming it from the healthcare or from the fintech, and there is a need of supporting from the integration ecosystem a specific provider, you can go ahead and just build it there. So building should not be that much difficult, and you should take the advantage of the cloud because that's what the cloud is meant for. But as you said, like let's not over engineer it.
Definitely.
So one thing which comes when I like as a founder, I'm less worried about the building, but then I'm looking for because I'm not, the expert into this space. What I look for is hiring people, right? And what kind of cloud skill set which will actually help, the early startups.
So first of all, though I am from a DevOps background, but I can tell you, you don't need a DevOps to start with. Okay, DevOps comes into picture maybe when your team is say 15, 20 people. If founders themselves are starting with, or maybe a one or two uh, mid-experience backend and front-end engineer, I think they should go with that kind of mindset only. You should hire a team who are readily available to try different hats. Okay, you shouldn't go for a DevOps engineer at all to start with. It at least for first five, six, four team member which you want to know. Okay, so you need someone who is, you can say, a hands-on engineer. Okay, who you can say really is very much cost centric in nature. Okay, he's very much cost aware. He can do multiple tasks. Okay, I've been saying it since inception of my career that the real hero in the IT world is always jack of all trades and master of none. And that stands true always. You see that now every 3 to 5 years, technology is changing at such a rapid pace. So that is happening. Okay. So you can't just focus on one thing. Even in all the organization, you will see it's not that DevOps engineers are the only one who know in and out of the infrastructure. Backend engineers are some backend engineers are really much more worthy than the actual DevOps engineer. The only you can say the wall between them is the access. Okay, if you can give same level of access to the backend engineer, they might do better. Okay, so I think that is one thing which every founder should do. Hire a backend engineer who really wants to try on the infrastructure type of the things also. And of course, for that, I don't think there is much skills needed. Okay, it is basically simple. He should be very much comfortable with the console and AWS CLI. Basic three-tier networking architecture he should be knowing. Infrastructure as code. I don't think now even that skill set is that much relevant after the AI is coming into the picture. Okay, so everyone can do it with a very uh, very basic idea about it. Okay, simple deployment pipeline that can be created through GitHub Actions, and I think in most of the org, GitHub Actions workflow file is being created by developers only, not the DevOps. The right team should have a good backend engineer. Okay, you don't need a cloud expert early on. Okay, so that is one thing, and a backend engineer who is not afraid of infrastructure. That is the most important thing to know. You don't need a Kubernetes administrator. You don't need a networking expert. I've seen people, we want a CCNA. I have never seen in my cloud journey a CCNA has ever been useful in my AWS VPC setup or something like that. How does that matter? Okay,
And for sure, right? What you described is correct. For example, if the founder itself is just coming from the tech background, he can just get his hands dirty and start building something so that he even no need to wait for the engineers. And as he see, or maybe the startup founder is not into the tech space, then definitely he can look for the engineers who are ready to get their hands dirty. But as always being said in the startup, it is less about titles, it is more about mindset and how do you execute those things.
exactly.
Yeah. And there is another benefit also which I see, right? So not only for the founders, but also for those engineers who are just coming along in the first one. They actually enjoy the learning because along they get this the entire product learning, and also like maybe when they become a very big company, they might not be able to work across the tools, across the product, etc., which they can just do it in the early phase of the startup.
Exactly. So now, if you will see in the LinkedIn or other posts also, people are just, uh, you can say, requirement is that person who can just bring them from zero to one. Okay, that is a very catchy word now because you need to start from the very basics. Okay, you can't just go and create a Netflix type of architecture or something.
Also, like let's say, yes, I'm into very initial phase, but now I see my product started giving me some a hint into the market, and I see, yes, the users are getting more and more interested. I'm getting more hits from the user perspective. When do you like usually see the teams they start thinking about scaling overall?
Usually they think even before the demand hits. Okay. So the problem is there only. Okay. You don't need to think about that. And that's why the cloud anxiety and all those things appears. So basically, I think, as I said, that you need to start from a very basic infrastructure setup. And then only two ways you can think about it, at least for 6 12 months, is that when your performance is really degrading under a normal load. Okay. That is one thing. And second thing is the database. Okay. Changing the database again and again is not that easy. So I think database is one thing which you can of course do. You just create a new read replica, move the read queries to there. That is much simpler to do it. Okay. And from a application performance perspective, mostly it is never an infrastructure issue. It is a basic, you can say, core MEA library issue, concurrency and parallelism issue. And maybe in the database also people have not used the indexes. Okay. So those type of very basic stuffs are there, which can also, once if those are fixed, another 6 to 12 months are easy to go. So I think that is one thing which you need to ensure that people are really scaling up when they are required. Okay. So, but the problem lies that yeah, people want that everything should be on a day zero. That is the issue.
No, you are absolutely correct, right? That's why from the maturity perspective, we do have the defined definition of like day zero, day one, and day two. Yeah, of course, you need to plan ahead for the future, but it is not something which you really require it right now because that's the energy which you can spend later on. Because the capacity and the energy is what matters to a startup. Because if, for example, an engineer can take out some capacity there, maybe he can help in building the better product. Maybe he found something where he can help founder to know, hey, this exactly seems to be not working so well with our consumer. Can we change the product in this way rather than just making the best architecture?
Exactly. I think maybe a single RDS and Lambda can handle most of the things. Why you require so much complexity?
And in the initial phase also, it is less about, hey, cannot my system break? Yes, it can break, but what is the impact if you just do have only like the 10 users and whom at what time you are going to showcase them, right? Once they start becoming the recurring user, once they start paying you, then definitely you need to focus on it. But as a founder, it should be okay, hey, if the thing doesn't work as expected, for
But
once or twice, it is okay.
first of all, I think even founders, or you can say anyone within the team, they should be very happy about if the something is getting broke. Okay, it is not intentionally, but people should be really happy that what we started with is now getting break because we have expected the or surpassed the expectation. Okay, so once or twice, if even if it broke up, the trade-off is very much okay. I saved around $50,000 to avoid a 10 minutes downtime, maybe RDS upgrade or something, say from dot large to X large. It will hardly take 20 minutes. Now, those 20 minutes downtime, it's well worth. Okay, I saved more than that in the past months. So somewhere you need to draw the line that okay, production issues are good at an earlier stage, especially from an scaling perspective. And of course, you don't have 24/7 users, right? At night also you can do it. You know the metrics and all those things. So hardly even the user will come to know of all those things.
Until and unless you are an AI product which just really becomes hit overnight, I don't think so. You need to, worrying about something. Tell me one more thing, Vinay. Like, yes, I can go ahead and spin up an AWS or Azure or GCP by just, giving my credit card details. Yes, that's good. But most of the founders are also worrying about the cloud cost, which is like worrying them a lot. Hey, is it something going to be, more than what I can earn from my product? Is it really that much heavy? Can we reduce it? What's your feedback on those things?
So as I said before also that you just need a basic stack. Okay, Lambda, basic RDS and all those things. To be very frank, you need to first set up the budget. Okay, let's say for AWS, if I start with, for the first 6 months, it should not cross say $500 per month. Okay, that is the hard limit. Okay. And founders should take all this cloud cost and everything as a dashboard. Okay, they should not leave it to someone else. It should be a proper part of a Scrum or a daily dashboard which they should have in their mail. That really I am on very much the same path which I've thought of, and my bill is not going to shoot up for more than $500. Okay, and for that, what all we need to do should be a priority. Okay, so once you will start doing that, you will not crib and complain about these things. I still remember in one of my early startups, there was a 2 hour meeting why $30 per month has increased. Now, daily 2 hour, if you are just pondering upon why $30 per month is getting now increased, that's the waste of engineering efforts, right? The amount, the salary of the people, that is more than $30 per month if you are just wasting 20 or 2 hours on a particular thing just to discuss. Okay, leave it to the experts when they come up, get the basics right. Of course, for that, you can just have all the AWS best practices and everything in place. But currently, I don't think that people are doing that. Multi-cloud is a very complex thing as though. Okay, multi-region and multi-AZ, especially I think they start with a single region only. So multi-AZ is something you should not go for it. Okay, that is the first thing I would advise. Go for a single AZ. As soon as you will go for a single AZ, you need a single NAT gateway. As though NAT gateway has its own cost, hourly cost, as well as the data processing thing. If you want to reduce that also, we forgot one thing when we started with our cloud journey. The difference between NAT gateway and NAT interface. Okay, no one use NAT interface now. I don't know why. You start with the NAT interface. While NAT gateway costs you $30, even a small NAT interface will not cost you more than $5. Okay, you just need to whitelist it and give an elastic IP. That's all. Okay, so once you are in a single AZ, go for a single NAT interface or something. Maybe NAT gateway if you want, but most probably NAT interface will do. If you are in single AZ, by default data transfer cost get cut. It is very much reduced. And that is the most important thing. Even in the very large organization, this data transfer cost is one thing. Neither any tool is currently coming up to optimize anything, nor people ever see those. It's a continuous, you can say, a rent which you are giving on your infrastructure. And it's huge, I can tell you. And you can't plan for it. Okay. If you go for multi-AZ, then you can't plan that one pod to another pod in a different or this thing is incurring say $5 per day. So be on a single AZ to start with. Okay. Idle resources. I've seen non-prod running 24/7, that too on on-demand instances. You start with a RDS, say T4G dot medium. How much time it takes to move it from T4G medium to T4G dot large? Whenever it will be required, you will can have it. I think T4G dot medium can at least handle your first 30, 50 customers. So those things need to be taken care of. Okay. One more thing, logging. I don't know how many people take this seriously, logging and monitoring. Even in simple CloudWatch, people should just check that you have a retention period of say 1 week or 2 week max for your logging. You don't require for more than that. If you require, you can have a separate policy for those things. I think the most important thing from cost perspective is just check your usage type. Every line item matters. So there you can just see what is happening and accordingly you can do it. And Lambda, DynamoDB, S3, these have a very good free tier. So try to use all those services which have a good free tier at a starting point. So that will also help you. And there is no engineering efforts for all these services. So these are very basic things which you should do.
No, definitely. And I think until and unless the investor have given you the money only to burn, you can always go ahead and, check those. But one thing which I really like is like, hey, you take the in charge of all those costs so that
Yeah,
you know them the very first day. And
yeah,
if it is like really increasing very high, then do. But during the initial phase, as you described, by leveraging those
yeah.
free tier, by leverage.
There are simple things which can be done by founder themselves. You just say enable the AWS budget alerting that this particular service should not cross this particular amount. There's something called cost anomaly detection. Every day you can find even if a particular threshold is crossed, say my EC2 instance cost doubled from the last day. Actually, you will come to know at that time only within 24 to 48 hours. So those are basic things which people should do. Okay, I don't know how many people within even the cloud check the cost explorer. That is the first thing they should do as part of their daily monitoring, at least once a week. Okay, but people are not doing it. Okay, and then of course, if they are not doing it, someday they will really be surprised about what is billing from the cloud perspective, and then all those things comes up in your mind that on-premises was better, cloud is not a good thing to have, all those things. So to avoid billing shocker, you have to get into a very basic thing. Okay. So I think even 1 million Lambda invocation, 750 hours of T instances, all those are free. Those comes into the free tier. So you need to just use those things. Everything like cloud providers are also uh, providing all those things just to keep you like that. The problem is that people think that cloud cost is something which is one time or something. It is not that. Okay. So it is not a rent, first of all. It's a very variable thing in nature. How much you will be using it, that's what you are being paying for.
So, Vinay, you shared a very good advice. If you can summarize, right, what a healthy cloud journey looks like for these founders for the first 2 years, how would you define that?
I think healthy, you need to first start with say day zero, day one, and day two. If I will just, you can say, want to break into three different this thing phases. So I will start for first 6 months. In first 6 months, basically you just need a team of say maximum 5 people, okay, who are basically working on say they have a cloud account. First of all, go for a single account, just from a manageability perspective. Okay, nothing else you require. Go for a Lambda based compute environment. Postgres, as I told you, S3, very basic, key clock based authorization, deploy CI/CD through GitHub Actions. So very basic things which you can do. So for this, you can have a say one engineer, okay, that to a backend engineer who is just curious about the infrastructure, nothing else. Okay, rest of the things I think simple guardrails you can add. Okay, that also comes into you can say a very initial phase, very basic. I think 1 or 2 days you will spend. Then say your MFA should be on your root access. Okay, there should be no public resources at all. Okay, these basic concepts which your security group should have only restricted permission that only my app can have those sources of traffic, all those things. So when you will have all those basics in place, that's all. You don't need to do anything fancy, at least for first 3 months or so. Then of course you can add from you can say 3 to 6 months or something. You can start adding some real monitoring in place. Okay, regarding the cost alerts. Okay, moving to the Terraform from whatever we had currently created. Okay, CloudWatch alarms, simple alarms for say error rate, latency, databases, all those things. Okay, so these are some basic things which you need to do. And then say once you are there, then from say after 6 months or so, then you just check what all are the bottlenecks. Say if the database is a bottleneck, just add a read replica or just upgrade your instance. Better first optimize your queries. Maybe you started at a very good note, but as the traffic increases, those queries are now really a problematic area. Okay. If required, then go for a caching there, Redis or something. That will of course help you out. Okay. Then other things comes up that you need to separate out the production and non-production and all those things. But ideally, I think till your minimal viable product is not there and your growth is not really sponsoring the infra scaling. Okay, till then, just keep it very simple. Nothing like that. Okay, once you are at that stage, maybe an after a year or so, then you intentionally, when you have that much traction, you plan certain things from a part of the growth perspective. But at that time, also, I will recommend till you are not going very large, don't go for Kubernetes because that is something which will really invest a lot of time.
Fully agree. And I think as you were describing it as like, you need to design your cloud system also that can evolve just like your product, right? You should not like just keep on planning something to make it perfect, but you will evolve over period.
On a closing note, only two things I would like to say to every founder. First of all, follow the KISS principle, that is, keep it simple, stupid. Okay, there is nothing complicated about it. And second is, infrastructure needs to be boring. It should never be exciting in nature. Your product should be exciting, but your infrastructure should be very boring.
Now, fully agree. So thanks a lot, Vinay, for joining and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thanks, Kuldeep.
All right, that's it for this episode of Techie Talks with Kuldeep. Until next time, keep learning and keep innovating.